Alright guys, Hayzink here, welcome back to the channel for another Street Fighter Duel video. In this one we're going to be talking about the latest legend that's entered the game, which is going to be JONIN IBUKI, okay? And we're going to basically be talking about, is she worth purchasing or is she not worth purchasing? Now, if you're someone who doesn't spend money in these games, then you already know the answer is no for you, because you don't spend money, so you're not really going to get your mind changed either way. However, if you are someone who does occasionally spend money in the games and you just want to make sure when you do, you are putting that money towards the best things and the best characters, we will talk about that in this video today, right? So first off, we are going to start off by talking about her skills. So her first skill is called Kage Rada. I'm not sure how you pronounce that exactly right, but deal damage that is equal to 576% of attack to a single enemy and inflict 1 times bleed on the target. If Rin is active, consume Rin to increase this skill's damage by 40% and inflict an additional 1 times bleed. Now, we will go over what Rin is. You'll see a couple of these throughout this. It explains it all in her passive, and we will go over her passive, right? When the skill ends, there is a 25% chance of obtaining Toe and a 25% chance of obtaining Sha. Level 3. Consuming Rin increases the skill's damage by 60%. Okay, so what I will say is, when you have her cars, all of these percentages that you see, that you get boosts based on Rin, Po, Sha and all the rest of it, those actual boosts are doubled, but we'll talk about that in our passive, okay? Now, bleed, we obviously know what bleed does, so we will not really focus on that too much, and that is her C1 playing out as we've been speaking about it in the video. So let's go ahead now and, her super, we'll go ahead and look at her C1 now and see what that's all about. So our C1 is actually quite reminiscent of Ibuki's other move, or standard Ibuki. You know, when she jumps up in the air and she throws out her kunai. I think it's a kunai anyway, and it spins. You can obviously see there, it's very similar to that in visual style. It deals damage that is equal to 284% of attack to a single enemy, then throw a Fukama Shuriken, right, so it's a Shuriken, okay, that deals damage that is equal to 46% of attack to enemies in an area. So it's a small AoE. If Toe is active, consume Toe to increase this skill's damage by 50% and reduce the damage bonus of targets hit by the Fumika Shuriken by 15% for 10 seconds. When the skill ends, there is a 25% chance of obtaining Rin and a 25% chance of obtaining Po. Consuming Toe increases this skill's damage by 70%. Okay, so you're obviously starting to notice a trend here. There's lots of if, buts and maybes, right? And it might seem, she seems quite RNG based, right? But they kind of do deal with that within her kit, okay? So we'll go on and talk about her final one, which is probably her biggest deal, so to speak, and it's going to be her C3. So her C3, deal damage that is equal to 458% of attack to the rearmost enemy. If Rin, Rin, Pai, or Toe or Sha are active, consume them to gain the corresponding buffs. Rin, increase the damage of this skill by 25% and inflict 1 bleed on the target. Po, increase the damage of this skill by 25%, increase crit rate by 15%. Po, increase the damage of this skill by 25%, reduce the target's damage bonus by 15% for 10 seconds. Sha, increase the damage of this skill by 50%. Increase damage to 527% of attack at level 2. And at level 3, if Rin, Po, or Sha are active, this skill ignores 25% of the target's defense. Okay? Now, when she has got her fighting spirit leveled, okay, you're guaranteed to get Sha, right? We'll go over our fighting spirit in a minute, right? So this isn't as RNG dependent as it looks, because her fighting spirit will guarantee you getting Sha, which is the increased damage of that skill, okay? Now the thing is, with the fighting spirit, it's an additional Sha, right? So It means that you could actually have some of these other things stacked up and you could be getting multiple effects on this skill, right? Now, the good thing about this is she is a real damage dealer, right? Which is going to help against like Bison teams and stuff like that. But as you guys know from Akuma, real damage dealers are also good for bosses because they can do large amounts of damage, and if you're facing a boss then you can do a lot of damage to that boss. However, she does have the same sort of a drawback as Akuma, which is if you are facing a boss like, say for example, Akuma, but he's got Goken with him, okay? These units are harder to use in those fights because it's more difficult to target a boss when you're using a unit who attacks the rearmost fighter, because the additional unit that's there alongside the boss tends to be at the back more often, so it's a lot harder to time. So these units tend to do better against solo bosses, okay? You'll have noticed this if you've got Akuma, he isn't as useful when you're facing a boss who has a side unit with them, because your damage often goes where you don't want it to go. So that is a drawback. However, this game does have a mixture of bosses, meaning she is going to see a lot of use in those boss type battles. So now that we've seen all our super attacks and we know what they do, let's have a look at our passive, okay? So, upon unleashing a combo or a super combo, gain either Rin, Po, or Sha at random. So this is a little bit like OG Rose. You'll know if you've got OG Rose, when you've got her leveled up, she gets tarot cards at random. It's a little bit like that, right? It is possible to gain the same effect repeatedly. Each effect lasts for 30 seconds and it cannot be stacked. Rin increases damage reduction by 10%. Po increases healing received by 20%. To increase damage by 20%. Sha increase damage bonus by 10%. Now, when it says it can't be stacked, it means the same effect can't be stacked. Okay, so if you somehow by some witchcraft and wizardry ended up with, no witchcraft and wizardry, it'll probably happen at a point. If you had most of these things, you could do your final attack with, for example, damage reduction, crit damage, and damage bonus all there at the same time, right? They could all be there and you could be getting a huge buff from her, okay? Level 2. Upon obtaining Rin, Po, To, or Sha, increase attack by 1% for 30 seconds. Stacks up to 10 times. Level 3. Upon entering Rin, Po, To, or Sha, increase attack by 1.5, and level 4, increase attack by 2%, stacked up to 10 times. So that means you can increase your attack up to 20%. Now if you look at that on top of all the other things that she's getting from her kit, she's obviously capable of doing large amounts of damage, okay? The only drawback I would say to her is, on some runs you're going to get more damage from her than other runs, because on some runs you might get the dream team rolls of these bonuses. You might get the Shaz that you're looking for, you might get the Toes that you're looking for. Then on other runs you might get Pose, which is giving you healing. It's not helping you put out as much damage. But the thing I'll say is, where you're going to probably use this unit most often, you've got infinite replayability anyway, because you tend to do that versus bosses to get your best scores. She is a unit that basically is going to thrive on that, because you are going to have those runs where it just lines up. The only problem I see with this is, you'll know this, because we now do multiple team battles, you can have a godly run on your team 1, but then your team 2 or your team 3 lets you down and you need to start again. So there is a degree of, you need the stars to align. Once you've got her perfect run, you really need to hope that you don't then screw up your run 2 with team 2 and your run 3 with team 3, because at that point, if you do, you then need to go back and repeat the cycle. But what I will say is, if we look at her fighting spirit, which is here, on her plus 30, there is a 100% chance of gaining an additional Sha upon unleashing the Suzuka Flash. it means that you're always going to have that increased damage dealt. I believe that's what it was, increased damage dealt. Let me double check. Yeah, increase the damage of this skill by 50%. So you're always going to have that because of her fighting spirit. So she's obviously a unit that really does need that investment into fighting spirit, okay? Now, we'll look at the rest of it here. When she's in the assist slot, she'll give Rin, Po, To or Sha at random, and the effect will last until the end of the battle. Obviously, whatever she gives, the unit that she's giving it to will get that bonus, okay? So, to remind ourselves, they will get damage reduction, they'll get healing received, they'll either get crit damage or they'll get damage bonus. Very good, actually, to be in the assist slot, very good. Going back here, but again, RNG, you might not always get the one that you want. Recover 5% of max HP upon gaining Rin, Po, To or Sha, so she's getting some healing off of them, which is good, considering she'll be getting multiple, so she'll be getting healing every so often, that's pretty good. Unlocked at 20, there's an additional 40% chance of gaining either Rin, Po, To or Sha at random upon unleashing a combo or super combo, so you can get more than one of these effects when you're doing the skills, okay? There is a 100% chance of gaining an additional Sha upon unleashing the Suzuka Flash. Now, we've been over that already. That is going to mean on your final skill, you're going to get some really good damage from her, okay? Now, the final thing we need to look at is what her cars do, and then obviously we can see whether she's worth getting or not. So with her cars, if you've got 3 out of 6, increase the buff effects of Rin, Po, To or Sha by 100%. The increased portion of each buff lasts until the end of battle. Awesome. Again, kind of like Rose. Rose has got a, I think it's in her fighting spirit though, where it will double the buffs from the tarot cards, okay? 6 out of 6, gaining Rin, Po, To or Sha at least once each, so full set, will increase crit rate by 30%. So she's going to be getting a huge amount of crit, okay? One other thing that's worth mentioning about Ibuki is she is very fast. I can't remember what Vega is like at base speed, okay? But she's up there. She's one of the fastest units in the game, okay? So she's very, very fast. And if you do get a little bit excessive and want to level her to Fighting Spirit 40, you can see here that she will gain an additional 12 speed, which will put her at 170 for speed. I think Vega might be 171, so she might be just slightly slower than Vega, but she's obviously still up there to be one of the fastest units in the game, meaning if you are doing something with multiple team setups and you've got Vega on one team and her on another team, those two teams are probably got a very strong chance of going first in PvP modes like Super Showdown and stuff like that, so you know, could be a very good pickup for that reason. Now, where would she be used? Obviously she's going to be a boss unit like we've said. She can be used in stages as well, particularly with multiple teams. If you have, say, 2 backline hitters on your team that hit strong, so for example her and Akuma, if you're facing a Bison team, you could be killing the back unit, just melt the back units until all that's left is Bison. So you don't actually need to have a unit on that team that will kill Bison, because you can basically kill all the units before you even get to Bison. Meaning that she does have a lot of use in teams as well. So despite not being very AoE focused, I would say that she is more than simply a boss killer. She is going to work very well for you in PvP, allowing you to go first, doing massive damage, being able to potentially work around Bison teams. She is going to work very well on bosses, like I've said, and she's going to work well on stages as well. So if you don't know where I'm going with this by now, it should be pretty obvious when I say it. I think she's absolutely worth purchasing. Some people don't really like Legends. I can't change your mind on that. All I can say is, when you look at the cost of summoning in this game, or any gacha game, being able to get a maxed out character for the price of a Legend, in relative terms of what everything else costs, they are, if they're good, they are the best value purchases within the game. Is Ibuki good? Ibuki potentially is maybe possibly going to end up with the crown of the best Legend in the game. She's probably going to outdamage Ken. Ken is decent, but he's not as good as he should be. I mean, on paper he should be fantastic, but he's just not. She has got a little bit more RNG involved, but she does perform absolutely fantastically, and yeah, she's 100% a unit that I do think is worth your while purchasing. So you can let me know in the comments down below if you plan to do that. But yeah, that's it. I've been Hayzink, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Peace.